Okay, we're going to be looking at converting comparison statements. The statement is, in a taste test, people who preferred Bolda Cola outnumbered those that preferred Cola Nola by a ratio of 3 to 2. It is important to know that when you look at a ratio, the order of the words is the same as the order of the numbers. And since it says Nola Cola next, that means that the 2 goes with Nola Cola. When it asks us to write something in the form of a fraction is always considered to be part to whole because the denominator in a fraction tells you how many pieces make a whole. So, this is a part-to-part ratio, the 3 being the Bolda and the 2 being the Nola. So in order to find out what the whole is, you have to add the 3 parts Bolda and the 2 parts Nola to get that there are 5 total. So when we write our part to whole ratio, if I'm writing a statement about Bolda Cola, I would say 3 out of every 5 people prefer Bolda Cola. And then always label your numbers to be sure. And again, if you wrote that as a statement, it would be 3 out of 5 people prefer Bolda Cola. If you had to write it as a percent is also considered part to whole because a percent is always compared to 100 and 100% is a whole. So then in order to write it as a percent, you have to have already had your part to whole numbers worked out. So since 3 out of 5 people, this is whole and our part is Bolda, and we need to figure out for a percent, and a percent is always out of 100, and 100% represents your whole. And we need to figure out how many people would like Bolda out of 100. It's really important to look at your labels. Since this is Bolda to whole, your other ratio has to be Bolda to whole. Now we know that they need to be equivalent, or it wouldn't be a true statement for the percent. At this point, you can solve it in many different ways. The most common way right now is to say, well, if 3 out of every 5 people like Bolda Cola, then how many groups of 5 people are in 100? We know that 5 times 20 is 100, so that means there's 20 groups of 5 people. So therefore, there must also be the 20 groups of the 3 people that like Bolda Cola, which would give us 60. In order to prove why this works, if you have a fraction of 3 over 5, and you multiply the numerator by 20 and the denominator by 20, you're actually multiplying it by 20 over 20, which is equal to 1 whole, which causes them to be equivalent. Because anything times 1 is that thing. So when you say what percent, if you wrote a statement, you would say 60% of people prefer Bolda Cola to Cola Nola. Lastly, if it asks you a question that says, well, what if you asked 200 people? So we have 200 people. That is considered a whole because it's neither Bolda nor Nola. And if we wanted to know how many people out of the 200 like Bolda Cola, we would have to again say, well, how many people did we ask in our survey? We had 5 people. And of those 5, 3 liked Bolda Cola. So again, that means for every 5 people, 3 people like Bolda Cola. So if we asked 200, we would again say how many groups of 5 people are in 200. Since there was 20 groups in 100, then there must be 40 groups of 5 people in 200, which means there's 40 groups of 3, giving us 120 people that like Bolda Cola. If we wrote that in a statement, we'd say 120 people out of 200 prefer Bolda Cola to Cola Nola. So let's look back at our statements really quick. When it asks you to write it as a fraction, remember it had to be a part to whole, and you would say 3 out of 5 people prefer Bolda Cola because you had to find your whole there. When you looked at the next statement as a percent is part to whole. It had to be compared to 100 since 100% is a whole, And we got that 60% of people preferred Bolda Cola to Cola Nola. Looked at our last one. What if you asked 200 people? That is also a whole, so you had to do people to people. And got that 120 people out of 200 people would prefer Bolda Cola.